I never thought that a simple car ride could change my life forever. But as the rain pounded against the windows, creating our own world, I was about to open the borders. The air was filled with tension, and I could feel my heart beating fast. What would you do if sin was staring you in the eye? My life was normal, just like everyone else's. I had a stable job, a loving partner, and a routine in which I felt safe. But sometimes the most dangerous storms break on the calmest days. It all started with a look. A simple look in the office, but it was enough to set my pulse racing. Max was new to our team, and from the moment he walked in, I tried hard to look at him. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my work and the life I was building. But every time he walked past my desk, a great excitement built in my chest. Our law office was small, just a handful of desks squeezed into a space that felt more and more cramped every day. Sometimes you could hear the fluorescent lights. Sometimes our hands would touch as I handed Max the file. I looked forward to our morning meetings just to hear his voice, to see his eyes light up when he talked about a new project. Attraction at work is common, isn't it? Just closeness and shared stress. But deep down inside, I knew it was more than that. The way I would get excited when she stood near me, the way I would wear her shortest mini skirts, and the way our glances would increase day by day. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between us grew. We started to find excuses to work late, to drink coffee together, to stand a little closer than necessary while looking at documents. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were doing something forbidden. Every smile, every laugh, every eye contact excited me. I found myself wondering what it would be like to kiss him, to feel his hands on my skin. As the days passed, the anticipation grew. I knew something had to happen. And then, one evening, as the office was emptying out and the sky outside was darkening with the promise of rain, Max said to me, "I can drive you home if you want. You won't be cold." I hesitated at first, but I knew it would be an opportunity. I said, "Sure." I said quietly, "That'd be great." As he walked to his car, the rain began to fall. The air was mixed with the smell of animals and rain. I told him to walk fast because my bare legs were getting wet. Max kindly gave me his long coat. He said, "Don't let your delicate legs get cold." That's when it all started. I loved that attitude so much. The rain started to fall harder, hitting the roof of the car. As Max pulled out of the parking lot, I wondered where this journey would really take us. The streets were slick with rain, but all I could focus on was the man next to me. The way his hands gripped the steering wheel, the faint smell of his cologne, the tension in his jaw as he concentrated on the road. With each passing minute, the world outside faded away, leaving only us, the rain and the unspoken desires hanging in the air between us. We didn't talk much as we drove along to the sound of the rain. We were both very excited, I know that. I tried to focus on the blur of the streetlights outside, but my attention kept drifting to Max. The silence between us grew longer and longer, almost unbearable. I wanted to say something to break it, but words failed me. Stefan's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white with tension. The interior of the car seemed to shrink with each passing moment, pulling us closer together even though neither of us was moving. I had never realized how powerful enclosed spaces could be. The privacy of the car, combined with the chilling cold of the storm, seemed like something terrible was about to happen. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were hurtling towards something inevitable, the tension building with each passing second. Stefan suddenly pulled the car to the side of the road, and for a moment neither of us moved. It was still raining outside, but inside the car, time seemed to stand still. Max turned slowly towards me and looked into my eyes for a few seconds. A narrow car, a stormy night, what more could happen? I had given up everything and was waiting for him to say something to me. Max was bringing his hand closer to me. My breath caught in my throat. When his fingers touched my cheek, I suddenly realized we had crossed a line. There was no turning back now. His hand touched my cheek and then caressed my cheek. It was still raining outside, but I hardly noticed him anymore. All I could focus on was Max, the warmth of his touch, and the way his eyes seemed to see right through me. What was going to happen next? My mind was screaming at me to pull back, to remember my partner waiting at home and think about the consequences. But my body had other ideas. I unconsciously leaned into his touch, craving more. Stefan's hand cupped my face, his thumb lightly caressed my cheekbone. The warmth of his palm against my skin was like coming home, finding a part of me I didn't know was missing. My heart was beating so hard I was sure Stefan could hear it, matching the rhythm of the rain pounding against the windows. When I opened my eyes, I saw Max watching me intently, his gaze so intense, but I still didn't want to stop. My hands, which apparently had a mind of their own, reached out to cover Stefan's. Our fingers intertwined, and I marveled at how perfectly they fit together. As if our bodies knew something, our minds were still trying to grasp that we belonged together. And what about my wife? I thought about it, but my emotions were overriding my stupid head. I felt Stefan's breath on my lips, quite warm. When our lips finally met, soft and hesitant at first, I knew there was no turning back. That kiss was like a match with gasoline. It ignited a fire that had been smoldering between us for weeks. All my thoughts of right and wrong disappeared, and I was going to do bad things in the car at the end. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate with each passing second. Max's hands tangled in my hair, pulling me to him, while my hands roamed over his chest, feeling his heart beating fast under my palms. The outside world ceased to exist. There was only us, this moment, this feeling. When we finally pulled apart, panting and flushed, the reality of what we were doing began to dawn on me. It was still raining outside, but inside the car a different kind of storm was raging. The windows started to fog up, and Max said something to me secretly. "I'm going to tell you about it in a minute because you're going to be shocked." I couldn't shake the feeling that we were creating something dangerous and beautiful. Isolation was fueling our forbidden desires, making them stronger with each passing moment. It was as if the storm had cut us off from the rest of the world, leaving us in a bubble where only our wants and needs mattered. I knew that once crossed, there was no going back. Then, as if by magic, our hands found each other. His fingers intertwined with mine. It was a very simple touch, but it felt more intimate than anything I had ever experienced. In that moment, all my doubts and fears melted away, replaced by an overwhelming need for more. I turned to face Max, my heart racing. His eyes were dark with desire, and I knew mine must be the same way. We were balancing on the edge of something life-changing, and I was ready to jump. As we leaned into each other, I could feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. The storm outside faded into the background as our world narrowed to just the two of us. The physical intimacy between us grew with each passing second. Max's free hand reached around my waist and pulled me to him. I let my fingers follow the line of his jaw, enjoying the feel of his skin under my touch. His fingers roamed up my arm, sending goosebumps down my spine. Every touch was really affecting me. I found myself leaning into him, craving more contact. My hands seemed to have a mind of their own as I roamed over his chest, feeling the solid warmth under his shirt. Our lips met again, this time more urgently. The kiss deepened, and I felt myself lost in the sensation. My heart was racing, and I could feel Max's pulse quickening under my fingertips. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were dancing on the edge of something dangerous and exciting. Every caress, every stolen breath was bringing us closer to the point of no return. The tension between us was growing with each passing second, like a rubber band stretched to its limit, ready to snap at any moment. Stefan's hand went to my waist, his touch burning the thin fabric of my blouse. I leaned towards him to be closer, to feel more of him against me. The small part of my brain that could still think rationally was screaming at me to stop, reminding me of the life I had outside this car, of the person waiting for me at home. But those thoughts were fading more and more with each passing moment, drowned out by the roar of blood in my ears and the intoxicating smell of Max's skin. What was I supposed to do? My body screamed for more, all my nerves burning with desire. But in the back of my mind, a voice told me that this was wrong, that I was betraying everything I thought I believed in. Max's hand slid down my side to rest on my thigh. His grip tightened, and I felt a surge of warmth inside me. This was the moment I had to decide. I looked into his eyes and saw my own conflict reflected back at me, the air between us crackling with tension, heavy with the weight of our unspoken desires. As his hand rose on my hip, I knew we were on the verge of something that would change everything. My mind was torn between the intoxicating pull of desire and the nagging voice of my conscience. I couldn't shake the feeling that the decision I was going to make in the next few minutes would have ripple effects on every aspect of my life. As Max's fingers traced patterns on my skin, I really didn't know what to do. How could I throw it all away for a moment of passion? But then Max's lips found that sensitive spot just below my ear, and my resolve was shaken. The guilt that began to build was quickly overwhelmed by a wave of desire so strong it left me breathless. Even as my mind recoiled at the thought of betrayal, my body leaned into his touch and craved more. I felt like I was being pulled in two directions at once, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and shame. The excitement of the forbidden was fighting the fear of the consequences. What kind of person was I to think that? But oh, how good it was to be desired so intensely, to feel so alive. Mac must have sensed my hesitation because he pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. "We can stop if you want," he said softly, but I could hear the strain in his voice, feel the tension in his body. He wanted this as badly as I did, and that knowledge only fueled my desire. I knew I was at a fork in the road, one path leading me back to safety, back to the comfortable life I knew. The other, well, who knew where that would take me? My mind was trying to rationalize, to find a way to fix this. Maybe it was just a physical attraction, a moment of temporary weakness. Maybe I could indulge myself just this once, and then go back to my normal life. No one would be the wiser. But deep down I knew it was a lie. It wasn't just about physical desire, there was an emotional connection here that I couldn't deny. But could I live with myself if I did this? Could I look into my partner's eyes knowing what I was doing? The thought sent a wave of shame through me, and momentarily extinguished the fire of desire. I had always considered myself a good, loyal, and honest person. How had I come to the brink of betraying everything I thought I believed in? As the battle raged inside me, I realized something. No matter what choice I made right now, nothing would ever be the same. Just by being here, by wanting this so badly, I had crossed a line. The innocence of my relationship, the trust I had taken for granted, had already been damaged. With this realization came a kind of reckless freedom. If the damage had already been done, why not go all the way? Why not seize this moment of passion, whatever the consequences? I looked into Max's eyes, saw my own desire reflected back at me, and made my decision. Time seemed to slow down, every second stretching into eternity. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, feel the blood rushing through my veins, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps, my chest rising and falling rapidly. Max's eyes were locked on mine, dark with desire and something deeper, more dangerous. I knew we were on the verge of something that would change everything. Once we crossed this line, there would be no going back. The weight of this decision settled on me, making it hard for me to breathe. My mind raced as I tried to grasp the enormity of what we were about to do. He got some wine out of the car, and I said it was late. Let's do something more serious instead. I closed my eyes, trying to control myself, but all I could focus on was the warmth radiating from Max's body, the intoxicating smell of his cologne mixed with something unique to him. My lips parted involuntarily, the anticipation making my mouth dry. In that moment, suspended between decision and action, I felt myself overflowing with conflicting emotions. Excitement coursed through me, tingling my skin. But there was also guilt, a sharp ache in my chest as I thought about the life I was about to turn upside down. And underneath it all was an undercurrent of fear of the unknown, fear of the consequences, fear of how badly I wanted this. When we were hanging on the edge of the cliff, time seemed to stop. The world outside disappeared, leaving only us, this moment and this choice. I knew that what happened next would define me in ways I could never imagine. With a shaky breath, I made my decision. I leaned in and closed the last distance between us. Our lips met, and it was like a dam breaking. All the tension, all the anticipation of the past weeks, poured out in that kiss. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, but it quickly became more passionate. Max's arms wrapped around me, pulling me even closer. I tangled my fingers in his hair and lost myself in the sensation. The kiss deepened, and I felt like I was drowning, consumed by a desire more intense than anything I had ever experienced. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, I knew there was no going back. The line had been crossed, the decision had been made. When I looked into Stefan's eyes and saw my own mixture of excitement and fear reflected back at me, I realized that my world had indeed shifted. For better or worse, everything had changed. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment of our encounter. The feel of Max's lips on mine, the warmth of his hands, the electricity coursing through my body, it was all like a dream. But the lingering pain in my chest told me that everything was very real. Guilt was overwhelming me, threatening to drown me in its intensity. What had I done? How could I have let things go this far? I thought of my partner, unaware of my betrayal, and felt a sharp sense of shame. The excitement and passion of the previous night now felt tainted. overshadowed by the weight of my actions. As I forced myself out of bed and went through my morning routine, my mind raced with questions. What would happen when I saw Max at work? How could I look my partner in the face knowing what I was doing? Ordinary tasks like showering and getting dressed seemed surreal to me, like I was watching someone else do it. I saw myself in the mirror and paused. Did I look different? Could people tell just by looking at me that I had crossed a line? I looked for signs of change in my reflection, half expecting to see my guilt written on my face. The drive to work was a blur of anxiety and anticipation. My heart was racing as I pulled into the parking lot and looked for Max's car. Were things going to get weird between us now? Would we pretend nothing had happened, or would the tension be palpable for everyone around us? My palms were sweaty, and I could feel the redness creeping up my neck. I tried to act normal, greeting my coworkers with a forced smile, but inside I was a jumble of conflicting emotions. As the day progressed, I found myself hyper, aware of Max's presence. The accidental touching of our hands as we passed files, the goosebumps every time we locked eyes in the office. The memory of our kiss would not leave my lips, making it hard for me to concentrate on anything else. When lunchtime came, I knew we had to talk. We couldn't go on like this, tiptoeing around each other and pretending nothing had happened. With my heart racing, I locked eyes with Max and nodded towards the door. He understood immediately and followed me into the secluded courtyard behind the building. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my racing heart, the guilt weighing heavy on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I closed my eyes, desperately trying to pull myself together. What was I supposed to do? How could I face my partner after what I had done? With trembling hands, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The familiar smell of the house hit me like a punch in the stomach. Everything looked the same: the pile of mail on the side table, my partner's jacket hanging over the back of a chair. But I felt like a stranger in my own life. "Hey, you're late home." My partner called from the kitchen. I froze, panic rising in my throat. I couldn't do it. I couldn't lie to their faces, but I had to. The alternative was unthinkable. "Yes, sorry." I managed to choke out. I couldn't make it to work. The taste of the lie was bitter on my tongue. Was this how it was going to be from now on? A web of lies woven to protect a moment of weakness. I was busy taking off my shoes. "Is everything all right?" they asked in a worried tone. "You look off." "I'm just tired." I lied again. "It's been a long day." As we went through our usual evening, routine dinner, TV, getting ready for bed, I felt like I was watching from outside my body. Every laugh felt forced. Every casual touch felt like betrayal. I found myself overcompensating, chattering nervously about work, asking too many questions about their day. Anything to fill the silence, anything to keep them from looking at me too closely. My hands were shaking as I washed the dishes, and I almost dropped a plate. "Are you sure you're okay?" my partner asked again, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I stiffened involuntarily, his innocent touch making me feel guilty. "I'm fine," I insisted, hating myself for telling lies so easily. "I'm just stressed about a big project at work." That night, lying in bed, I looked up at the ceiling, aware of the distance between us. It was only a few inches, but it felt like miles. How could I be so close to someone, and at the same time feel so far away? The secret burned inside me, threatening to explode at any moment. I tossed and turned. Sleep overtook me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Max's face, felt his touch, the memory of our stolen moment in the car playing over and over in my mind. Even though I hated myself for wanting him, I longed for him. Somehow, I had managed to get through the night without arousing suspicion. But as I listened to my partner's steady breathing beside me, I knew this was just the beginning. How long could I keep up this charade? How many more lies would I have to tell? The weight of my secret was pressing down on me, suffocating me. I had always considered myself an honest person, but now I was learning how expensive it was to keep secrets, each lie, each omission, tearing apart who I thought I was. As dawn broke and painted the room in soft light, I made a silent vow. This would be the last time. I would end my relationship with Stefan and go back to my normal life. But even as I thought it, I knew it was another lie. At first, the changes were subtle. I found myself checking my phone more often, my heart pounding every time I got a notification. Was it Stefan? What was I going to do if it was? The constant worry of the possibility of being caught made me tense and distracted. My relationship with my partner also started to change. I felt guilty all the time, making it difficult for me to participate in our conversations. I would overcompensate, showing affection one moment and withdrawing myself the next. I couldn't shake the feeling that they could see right through me, that my betrayal was written all over my face. I began to avoid group lunches and after-work drinks, fearing that in a moment of weakness I might reveal something. My colleagues noticed my withdrawal, and their worried looks only increased my paranoia. Was I being too obvious? Did they suspect something? Even my friendships felt tense. I found myself distancing myself from my closest confidants, afraid that if I came out, everything would come out. The weight of my secret was crushing, isolating me from the people I cared about most. I couldn't help but wonder how far the ripples of my decision would spread. Would my infidelity affect my partner's trust in me in future relationships? Would the dynamics of our group of friends change if the truth came out? The possible outcomes seemed endless, each possibility more frightening than the last. As the days turned into weeks, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The person I thought I was loyal, honest, trustworthy had been shattered. In his place was someone I barely knew, someone capable of deception and betrayal. Worst of all, despite the guilt and fear, a part of me still craved Max's touch. I found myself reliving our moment in the car, the memories both exhilarating and agonizing. How could something that felt so right be so wrong? I stood at a crossroads, torn between the life I had built and the temptation of what could be. Every day was a battle between desire and duty, passion and guilt. I knew I had to make a decision, but I felt paralyzed by the weight of the choice before me. As I lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, my husband sleeping peacefully beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living on borrowed time. How long could I keep up this charade? How long could I lie before it all came crashing down around me? This internal struggle was exhausting. I felt like I was being pulled in 1,000 different directions, each choice taking me to a future I couldn't fully see. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My mind was overflowing with possibilities, each one more frightening than the last. Should I confess to my partner and break the trust we had built over the years? Or should I continue my relationship with Max and live a double life full of secrets and lies? Or should I cut ties with both of them and make a fresh start somewhere new? Each option seemed impossible, but I knew I had to make a choice. The longer I waited, the more damage I was doing to everyone involved, including myself. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of my own making, gasping for breath as waves of guilt and desire crashed over me. I thought about confessing. The words played over and over in my head. There's something I need to tell you. But every time I imagined the look of betrayal on my partner's face, the pain I would cause, I felt discouraged. How do you tell someone you love that you have broken their trust in the worst possible way? I found myself Googling articles on decision making in high-risk situations, weighing the pros and cons, listening to your gut. But how could I trust the instincts that got me into this mess? One night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I tried to imagine my future down each path. If I confessed, would my partner ever trust me again? Would every late night at work, every text message become a source of suspicion? And if they couldn't forgive me, could I forgive myself for throwing away our life together? If I chose him, would the excitement of our forbidden love be lost when it came to light? Would the guilt of how we started always hang over us like a shadow from which we could never fully escape? What about our co-workers, our friends? How would they look at us when they knew how our relationship began? The third option seemed to be to cut ties with both of them, to run away. But maybe what I needed was a fresh start. A chance to understand who I really am and what I really want, without the chaos of my current life. As the days passed, the pressure on me to make a decision increased. I could see the worry in my partner's eyes, the questions they were afraid to ask. At work, the tension between me and Max was palpable. We were subjected to curious looks from our colleagues. Something had to happen. In the end, it wasn't a moment of great clarity that led me to my decision. It was a quiet realization that settled over me like a warm blanket. I knew what I had to do. It wouldn't be easy, and it would probably hurt a lot. But it was the only way I could live together. I took a deep breath and prepared myself for what was to come. Tomorrow, I would put everything in motion. But for tonight, I gave myself one last chance to think, one last chance to say goodbye to the life I had left behind. I knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. My advice to you is never attempt such a thing. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more stories. I love you all.